Hi, welcome to the T-Shirt Teacher. Kristen here, published author, editor, and former high school English teacher. This is episode 4 of Pick Your Poison. We'll be splitting this episode up into 2 parts because there's just so much background to explore. Having time to truly understand and explore literature is part of the joy of reading. There is so much richness to be found in the written word, but our society is so rushed. I hope this channel helps you to be able to keep up with the pace that modern education pushes on you, but not lose the important lessons that literature and fiction have to teach us. On today's episode of the T-Shirt Teacher, we will be talking about the love interest, or rather obsessions, of Coriolanus Snow from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes and Hamlet from the classic play Hamlet. Now, Hamlet, we find, had already had an interest in Ophelia, who is his love interest. But Coriolanus, in contrast, is not initially romantically interested in Lucy Gray. Lucy Gray and Ophelia are very different characters. However, part of that can be attributed to the time periods in which the books are set. Hamlet is set hundreds of years ago in Denmark, which is a monarchy, and it is controlled by men, and there is, of course, that clear divide between classes. However, it is also the clear divide between the men and the women, and we'll see that in the actions and reactions they have to the women within the story. Now, in Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, we do not really see that divide between men and women. It seems that all the women have equal opportunity. Coriolanus has female classmates, he has female professors, there's females in places of power. The only difference we see is he mentions that he doesn't think it's fair he got the girl for his tribute because she's a little bit physically weaker as compared to a boy. That's really the only time we see a differentiation. And this is set sometime in the future, in an imagined dystopian future. So we've got history, historical fiction, future. And again, because of this, Lucy, of course, is going to have different actions and reactions versus Ophelia. And they are different, but they are imperative to the story. Both Lucy and Ophelia, while they are not similar characters in every way, they are so important to understand the background of Hamlet and Coriolanus. We will start with Lucy Gray Baird from Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, and we'll set up her entrance. If you've already read The Hunger Games and the books that follow, you know what The Hunger Games are designed for, but in case you haven't read the books, I'll read a short portion from page 23 in Ballad, where the current president speaks before they begin what is referred to as the reaping, where they choose the tributes, or the contestants of the Hunger Games. He recited a passage from the Treaty of Treason, which laid out the Hunger Games as a war reparation, young district lives taken for the young capital lives that had been lost, the price of the rebels' treachery. We are then introduced to a girl that is reaped from District 12, which is the poorest, most bleak district as described in the books. Coriolanus has been assigned this girl to mentor, but the television is showing him who it will be. And he has little hope that his tribute will be a victor until he sees what is happening on the television, and then he has a little spark of hope. The District 12 girl is Lucy Gray Baird, he said into a mic. That's on page 24. When we see Lucy make her entrance, and it is quite an entrance, we see what kind of girl Lucy is. It happened quickly. The dip of her hand into the ruffles at her hip, the wriggle of bright green transported from her pocket and deposited down the collar of a smirking redhead's blouse, the rustle of her skirt as she moved on. Focus stayed on the victim, her smirk changing it to an expression of horror, her shrieks as she fell to the ground, pawing at her clothes, the shouts of the mare, and in the background her assailant was still weaving, still gliding her way to the stage, not looking back even once. Heavensby Hall came to life as people elbowed their neighbors. Did you see that? What did she drop down her dress? A lizard! I saw a snake! Did she kill her? Coriolanus scanned the crowd and felt a spark of hope. His long shot of a tribute, his throwaway, his insult had captured the capital's attention. That was good, right? With his help, perhaps she could keep it, and he could turn disgrace into a respectable showing. One way or another, their fates were irrevocably linked. And early on, even as early as this sighting, we see Coriolanus viewing her as a pawn in his game, as a means to an end. Her survival is important to him, not because of who she is as a person, but because of his personal interest in her putting on a good performance. We find that Lucy has put what appears to be a snake down the dress of the mayor's daughter, and it's confirmed on page 25 that it's a small iridescent green snake. Snakes seem to be the key to Lucy's survival, which again, it's a foreshadowing of things to come, a metaphor for her ability to manipulate snakes who walk on two legs. And on page 25, as Coriolanus watched Lucy Gray take the stage, he felt a stab of uneasiness. Could she be mentally unstable? There was something vaguely familiar but disturbing about her, the rows of raspberry pink, royal blue, and daffodil yellow ruffles. She's like a circus performer, one of the girls remarked. The other mentors made sounds of agreement. And there's much more about Lucy Gray that we can discuss because she's so important to the story, but let's go ahead and jump to Ophelia from Hamlet and our first introduction to Ophelia. First, let's set up some background on Hamlet's worldview. And again, I said it wouldn't be 100% in chronological order because it's not going to be, because I'm pulling from both books. And we'll jump back and see how Hamlet was reacting in some of the conversations with his mother and his uncle, who is now the king, when they ask him why he's still sad about his father's death. And Claudius even calls him unmanly in Act 1, Scene 2, lines 92 and 93. And strangely enough, he asked Hamlet not to return to his studies in Wittenberg, and Hamlet really wants to just go back and study where he was. He doesn't want to stay in the mess. He does want to find out what is going on. At this point, that was before he had confirmed that his uncle had killed his father. Hamlet insists it's normal to grieve, and because of the aggravation with his mother, and we find out it's only been a month between the death of his father and the wedding of his mother to his uncle, but because of his irritation with his mother's weak nature, he expresses how he feels about women in general after seeing that play out. And we'll see that later in his interactions with Ophelia. In Act 1, Scene 2, the famous line, "Frailty, thy name is woman," is uttered by Hamlet after a discourse on how horrible it was that his mother not only married his uncle, but somebody so unlike his father. Act 1, Scene 2, lines 152 through 158. "My father's brother, but no more like my father than I to Hercules, within a month, ere yet the salt of most unrighteous tears had left the flushing of her galled eyes. She married, oh most wicked speed, to post with such dexterity to incestuous sheets. It is not, nor it cannot come to good, but break my heart, I must hold my tongue." And that is basically Hamlet saying that it has not been allowed to grieve without being told that he is unmanly and these awful things that they say to him, and he says awful things back to them as well. But Hamlet's view of women definitely gets, I think, skewed by his mother after that sequence of events. And then between that scene where the guards tell Horatio about the ghost and Hamlet seeing the ghost, we get that brief introduction to Ophelia in Act 1, Scene 3. Polonius, her father, the king's advisor, and Laertes, who is her brother. He's important too, so don't forget about Laertes. Laertes is her brother that's about to return to his studies, and he wants permission from the king to go back to study and university because he has come, he has done his duty, he has mourned, he has celebrated. He's like, okay, it's time for me to go back home. Laertes has noticed that Hamlet and Ophelia have been spending time together, and Laertes warns Ophelia that he does not believe that Hamlet's intentions are pure. In Act 1, Scene 3, lines 5 through 9, we find Laertes warning Ophelia not to trust Hamlet. He says, "For Hamlet in the trifling of his favor, hold it a fashion and a toy in blood, a violet in the youth of primy nature, forward not permanent, sweet not lasting, the perfume of suppliance of a minute, no more." Basically, he's saying that Hamlet is going to move on very quickly, and it's a fling. He also warns her later in the scene, starting at line 17, he says, "His greatness weighed as will is not his own, for he himself is subject to his birth. He may not, as unvalued persons do, carve for himself, for on his choice depends the safety and health of the whole state, and therefore his choice must be circumscribed unto the voice and yielding of the body, wherefore he is the head." Laertes is telling Ophelia that Hamlet is of a higher station than she is. The entirety of Denmark is going to decide who the best match for Hamlet would be. And it may not be Ophelia, and he does not want her to have her heart broken, or, as we see a little bit later, because again, remember, different time period, okay? Very different time period. He is very worried about her honor. Later in the scene, we see Laertes also warning her that she needs to be cautious of Hamlet's affections. And he says, if with too credent ear you list his songs, or lose heart, or your chaste treasure open to his unmastered importunity, fear it, Ophelia, fear it, dear sister. And then he talks more, and he's basically saying, don't lose your chaste treasure, which is her virginity. That's what that means, literally. And in that time period, it was a huge deal if a woman was dishonored like that. And he knew that that would not only put Ophelia in a vulnerable position, but it would put her future in jeopardy, especially since they later mention she does not have the freedom Hamlet does. Hamlet can make mistakes because he's royalty. Ophelia is simply the daughter of the help of royalty. Still in the court, but not quite that higher level. And he ends by saying, be wary then. Best safety lies in fear. Youth to itself rebels, though no one else is near. Ophelia agrees to listen to him, but she also tells him, practice what you preach, essentially. She says, I shall the effect of this good lesson keep, as watchman to my heart. But good my brother, do not, as some ungracious pastors do, show me the steep and thorny way to heaven, while like a puffed and reckless libertine, himself the primrose path of dalliance treads, and recks not his own reed. That is just Shakespeare language for, will you behave yourself too as you go off? Their father Polonius enters towards the end of the scene, and he is sending off Laertes to his destination. He gives Laertes advice, and then he asks, what was the nature of your conversation, Ophelia? What were you talking about? Ophelia tells him, and she admits she's been seeing Hamlet quite often, and she says on Act 1, Scene 3, line 100, he hath, my lord, of late made many tenders of his affection to me. Polonius replies in lines 102 through 104, affection, pooh! You speak like a green girl, unsifted in such perilous circumstance. Do you believe these tenders, as you call them? Ophelia, in line 105, says, I do not know, my lord, what I should think. And this interaction between Ophelia and her father and brother just shows us a little of the historical context in the patriarchal society and the monarchy that they live within. And the perilous circumstance her father is talking about is exactly what Laertes was warning her about, which was that she does not have as much freedom to go around and do what she wants as a prince does. And also, as a woman in that society, she has very little options. It's get married, or there's really not much else. And to get someone to look at you for marriage, you have to be pure in their eyes. And if word gets around that she has been seen alone with Hamlet, it's going to be very hard for her to make a match in this society. And also, her reactions to her father and brother just show us the type of society she lives in. She is very much agreeing that she will listen to their words, and then at the same time she's saying, I don't know what I should think. What do you think I should think? She's very obedient and submissive, compared to Lucy Gray, who is a little bit wild and rebellious. We see a sharp contrast between Ophelia's entrance to the plot line versus Lucy Gray, but they're so important to the story. So yes, they're different, but we are going to talk about them both. Ophelia, she's very obedient. She's very docile. She also is very much a product of the time period in which she is living. And Lucy is very rebellious, very wild, very out there. And Lucy makes a grand entrance, full of rebellion from the beginning. And as she mentions in her song, her pa died and she isn't even sure who he is. Ophelia, in contrast, has her father and brother telling her what to do. Lucy and Ophelia, though, share that they are in a lower station than their love interest. Now, initially, of course, Coriolanus isn't interested in Lucy romantically, but eventually he is. And these ladies play such a large role in the main character's life in the book. They are so important to that big picture. Lucy plays a more significant role and she'll get more screen time as such. However, Ophelia's role is definitely important in its understanding the complexity of Hamlet and Hamlet's obsessive nature. And we will pick back up with Lucy and Ophelia next time on the T-Shirt Teacher. And today's T-shirt is from one of my favorite shows, Bones. And it's Seeley Booth and Dr. Temperance Brennan from Bones, the T-Shirt Teacher, making formal learning more comfortable. Have a great day, guys.